Hello, welcome back. So last time, if you were watching, they had a disaster and the guitar that we made, or guitar front that I started to make, has all gone completely curly and into a nightmare. Means got to start again. But then again, we choose to do these things because they are hard and not because they are easy. So I'm going to try again. The big problem with the last one was that first of all, we steamed the bit of maple, and as it dried, it all cracked. Obviously this maple veneer is not very strong and it doesn't like being soaked and then dried again. So that's something to be avoided. When we glued it to the substrate, we glued it to the plywood, it was much more stable and it didn't crack. So there's the thing, we need to dry it whilst it's attached to the plywood. The other thing is, when we put it together, the plywood was wet and the maple was dry. I think what happened, as the plywood dried, we glued it together while the plywood was still wet. And so the plywood dried and it caused the whole thing to turn and close up, which then in turn caused the maple to split down the middle, and it all went wrong from there. So what I'm figuring then for this next try is we do all three. So I'm going to press all three, steam them, because we found out as well that dry heat, so put it in a plastic bag, if you remember, tried it with dry heat, it just cracked, it wouldn't bend. I tried it twice, it split down the middle, didn't work. Now, solution for that, first of all, if it had just been the glue that had cracked, then I might have tried some more heat-proof epoxy, but it wasn't. In fact, the stuff that came out wasn't really shaped properly either. It didn't really hold the shape, so it didn't really work. So steaming is what I'm going to try again. I'm going to try all three. So I'm going to press this one into shape, I'm going to press the plywood into shape, top, bottom, so we've got the sandwich of three. Then I'm going to glue them together, but this time I'm going to glue them together using a water-based glue. And the theory is I'm going to hold it all down, and as the glue dries, as the thing shrinks and the glue dries, the glue will dry, but it will let the moisture through. So if I've got it pressed down, I can have the whole top exposed, and I'll show you how I'll do that in a minute. And then the water will be able to evaporate from the top, and because it's water-based glue, the theory is it will suck water from the middle layer, which will then in turn suck water from the bottom layer, and hopefully in a few days the whole thing will slowly dry and hold its shape. But we'll see if we have another disaster. Okay, let's get going. And of course, the one difference that you've probably noticed, last time I had the whole sheets, this time I've pre-cut them into guitar shapes. Now the way I've done that, you can probably see on this one, I've drawn the guitar shape, but then I've drawn sort of 1.5 centimetres around the edge, so this is bigger than the real thing, and that will allow for, as it gets pressed into the mould, obviously that will shrink the outsides. And the reason I've done that, first of all, it's going to be smaller and easier to handle, but secondly, it's going to be easier to centre, because last time I had trouble knowing where to put it on the mould. So this time I'm going to put it on the mould. I'm going to put little tiny tabs this thick, so that as I put it into the mould to press it, it'll locate on the tabs and it'll be in the right place. And then I'll press it and then do the next one and the next one. And as long as they're all the same size, they should all locate on the tabs within 5 mil either side. And I'll have three shapes which I can then glue together. I'm going to glue them together, blah, blah, while they're wet. So the time has come to introduce you to the secret weapon. This is a Go Bar press. It's really easy to make. It's just a piece of plywood with 4 bits in between, and they're just screwed together like I just made little feet. Screw them together so you've got a top surface and a bottom surface. And what you do, you take your former, fits in there, and then when you put the things into it that you want to keep to press into that shape, you take one of these, which I've got on the top, which are just small pieces of wood, just thin, fairly stiff, and then you put your thing on, get the bit of wood, you bend it, and you can see that the force there presses down. So that means I can have a whole bunch of these Go Bars, and I can put my 3 pieces that I'm going to glue together, I can lay them all 3 into there, put a load of these Go Bars all over them, and it'll hold it into that mould while it dries. But it won't be like putting the mould on top, which sealed in all the moisture. This, in theory, is going to let the moisture out. So from the top it's going to start to dry, and hopefully the whole thing's going to slowly dry and hold its shape and be held in place. And when I release it, it won't go doink like the other one did. We'll see. Let's start steaming the wood. So it's a change of plan. I was going to put, I did put some little slithers of this wood in between, but when I got my gloves on and when I put it into a plastic bag, I could not locate it. I couldn't feel the little bumps. So I need something more substantial to hold it. And what I've come up with is this, some chunky pieces of wood, just two. And I'll plant them in place on here. And the idea is when this is in a bag, put it against there, and I can feel when it's against both of them, and that's firmly in place. Then I can put the top on, I can whip the clamps off, pull these out, bit of rigmarole, and this should stay in place. I'll kind of hold it with a hand, take these off, put the lid on, we should be good to go. So here we go, it's in the bag. Let's set the steamer off. Okay, it's had its 5 minutes. Let's put the big gloves on and let's see if this plan for locating the piece of wood actually works. So let's find a bit of wood first of all. Here it is. This particularly. So let's take out the protective bit of wood. Okay. That's it. Some weight on it. Okay, a little bit more of a fill than I thought. As I tried to locate it, as you probably saw, the steam vent fell out, so I switched off the steam earlier than I was hoping, but it's there. We'll come back to that in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. When it's cooled, and we'll see if it's cracked or broken, or whether it's taken on the right shape. So, off for a cup of coffee. Okay, it's had time to cool. Let's fetch it out. Let's see what we've got. So after that complete disaster a second time, and it's almost worse than a disaster because steaming it worked last time, this time it didn't. And I'm fairly convinced it's because the epoxy is getting hot and it's not surviving. So the choices are I could get some high temperature epoxy, and I have ordered some just in case. But the other thing I've been thinking, this is half of one that just fell apart. It's been steamed, but actually it's not really taken on much of a shape. And it's very, very bendy and soft. So I'm wondering, do I even need to steam it? Because it's a small bend, can I just put it in the mould with some weight and maybe with some other layers on, leave it to dry? Will it take on the bend? So that's what I'm going to try next. And I'll use this for something else. So I'm going to make another one, because this is wet and it'll take forever to dry. I'm going to make another one, and then I'm going to try just using water, and we'll see where we get with that. Okay, so now I need to get these bits of wood completely wet. So we'll move over to my state-of-the-art Xylo hydration facility, and it's just through this door here. We'll come in here. Let me flip the camera around, and here we are, state-of-the-art. Okay, and the idea, I'll put some warm water in here, put the wood in, and then we'll leave it to soak for a while. So now I'm back here with the Go Bar press. Now you can see that I've moved it inside because Frankly, it's freezing cold in the garage and the thing will never dry. So what I've got here, if you look underneath, I've got the plan of my guitar, so the mould, sorry, that we made earlier on, just the wooden part. And what I've done is cover it with a very thin sheet of this bin liner. That's just because I'm not sure if it's going to stick or whether the water's going to soak into the mould and make a mess of it. So better safe than sorry, I've put that. So next thing to do is start putting the wood on. And here's the first bit. So it's had about 10-15 minutes to soak. It's still in one piece, which is good. So now I can decide which way up it's going to go. And it seems to be, that seems to be the nicest of the two sides. So let's put that there. And the way I've cut this is you can still see the little marks where the centre is. So I can centre it, and I can also check for where it is. I'll have a feel for where it is in terms of where it starts to bend to get it right in that direction, which is about there. So that's about it central. So there's the first piece. We'll get the second piece, which again has had about 15 minutes. Now I've taken them out for sort of 10 minutes to just surface dry so they're not dripping wet. So this is the plywood layer, and again that's still in one piece. So what I'm going to do is apply glue to that, and what I'm using is just a water-based glue. And remember we said at the beginning that I'm going to apply the water-based glue, which is going to allow which is going to set with this thing. So the idea is all three will dry together and they'll go and shrink together. So you don't get any of that horrible curling up that we got last time. But the glue is going to allow water to pass through it, so the whole thing should dry. Well, that's the theory anyway. Let's see if it works. Okay, that's the glue added. Now put the top layer on. Check it's all lined up. That goes on the top like that. And when that's on, we get the second layer of glue. And finally we can add the third layer, so it's the second maple layer if you like. Check this is all fairly central. Like that. Pop the top on. Okay, and now we can start pressing it into shape. So I have a bunch of go bars, and I've also got some of these little spreader, little bits of maple just to spread the load. So the first thing is one in the middle, press it down into that first bit of shape. Another one here. Okay, and we'll just carry on round and apply them. Now what I'm doing is taking it the curve first, and then I'm going to bring it out sideways. And that's holding quite nicely. I can feel it pressing it into the mould. So far so good. Let's start to put some on these outside bits, because this is now doing the job of that other mould. So really that first mould I made was a bit of a waste of time. That resin one took ages as well, but we'll see. I'm trying to get it symmetrical as well, just in case it doesn't press completely into the shape. At least it'll be a symmetrical form. So still got quite a few left, which is good. I'll keep going round. So So that's pressing into shape. The main one next is just, I'm going to go all around the outside with them, with the ones that I've got left, to make sure it doesn't curl up at the sides now. I'm just going around, you can just press and feel if there's any gaps, and it feels like it's all touching the mould, but you can see that unlike when I had the main mould pressing onto the top of it, this time all this is exposed so the water can evaporate off, and I'm hoping that that will then dry in a way that the other one didn't. And while it's held down, I'll leave it for a good few days until it feels completely dry, and then we'll try and take it off and we'll see what it's like. So that's the next version in the press and waiting to dry. It's going to be a while, so I guess this is a good time to finish this episode. Hopefully it was useful, and next time we will be taking it out of the mould. So let's see if it's worked. So hope it was useful, and don't forget to press the subscribe button. Maybe I'll see you next time.